Hello everyone, welcome to my channel AI Game Junction. In this series of videos, we are creating an AI bot from scratch for Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. Before we start today's video, let us quickly talk about what we learned in the previous video. In the previous video, we learned the importance of goals. How can you use goals to break down your AI logic into smaller milestones so that it becomes more manageable? We went through the reference of goals as to how is it an array of length 512, so you have 512 goals available in the game. And we also learned how to set goals, and we also learned how to use goals as facts. If you're interested in that video, please feel free to check out the previous video in the playlist, and I will also be adding a link in the description below, so please feel free to check it out. All right, so coming to today's video. In today's video, we are going to be talking about different bitwise operators or conditions such as OR, NOR, AND, NAND, XOR, XNOR, etc. in a lot of detail. So let's jump straight into it. Okay, so before we get into the individual operators, let us first see where do you use operators and how do you use operators in your AI logic. For that, we will switch back to our coding screen. Okay, so as you can see over here, we have written multiple rules in the past videos. Let's take this as an example. So if you look at a rule and if you look at the anatomy of a rule, you have a set of conditions which are also known as facts, and you have actions. So the way to read a rule is if all these conditions are met, then this action is going to be performed, right? So operators are actually used in the conditions section, right? Not every time you will be able to define your condition in this simple manner, like your current age is your dark age, and if you can train a villager and your civilian population is less than max villager count, then train a villager. Sometimes you might need slightly more complex and complex logic, right? And another thing that is important to note is that there might not always be a single way to define the same condition. So just taking an example over here, civilian population less than max villager count can also be expressed as civilian population not greater than equal to max villager count. Essentially, that would yield the same result, right? There might be other scenarios as well where you might need slightly more complex logic. For example, let's say you have a cav sieve and you want to set your strategy to scout rush, right? So let's say you want to set your condition to say that if your sieve selected is either Berbers or Franks, in that case set my goal to early scout rush, right? So in this scenario, if you notice, your condition is more of an OR condition. You are saying that if Civ is Berber or if it is Frank, then in that case perform some action which is setting the goal to scout rush, right? So we just discussed that you would need different operators to construct different condition sets in your rules. So that's pretty much it about how do you and where do you use the different conditions in a rule. Let us now dive straight into individual rules. Alright, so as part of your AI scripting logic, you will have access to these 7 operators. You have AND, you have NOT, then you have NAND, you have OR and NOR, and then finally you will have XOR and XNOR. For the purpose of scripting, I would say that mostly these 5 rules, AND, NOT, OR, NAND and NOR, these are important for you to understand. I was looking up some of the most popular bots out there like Rehoboam and Immortal. I did not find even a single condition of them using XOR and XNOR. So I would say that don't worry too much about these two operators. They are very advanced use cases, and you can get away with your entire AI scripting without these two operators. If you just try to understand these five operators, like your AND, or NAND, NOR, and NOT, if you understand these, then you should be pretty good throughout your AI scripting journey. Right, so let us dive straight into AND. For that, let's go back to our coding screen. Right, so as you can see over here, if you coming back to this rule, right, AND is the default rule. Okay, so that is the default rule. However, you can also use it separately, and we'll be talking through how you can use it separately. But let us first talk about why is AND the default rule. If you take note of the rule that we had created in our previous video, how do you read this rule? If the current age is dark age, and if you can train a villager, and your civilian population is less than max villager count, in only that case you will be training a villager. So as you noticed, your AND is by default part of your condition set. However, you can also explicitly use and still expect your rule to work in a very similar fashion. So let's see how that works out. How do you define AND? So you will open and close parenthesis, and then you will use the special keyword AND. Let us copy paste this rule over here actually, and let us copy paste this rule over here. That's how you define an AND condition within parentheses. The first condition of the AND will be using the AND keyword, and the second condition will be your normal rule in condition in parentheses. This rule should ideally work in the similar fashion as our previous rule. So if we go back to the game and we test it out, then we should expect it to train the villager in a very similar fashion. So let's go to the game, and let's start the game. As you can see, there are no errors, and our villager, the town center, is training a villager. So this means that the rule is working as expected. Heading back to the editor, just quickly recap over here. We learned that AND is your default condition actually, and so you don't need to explicitly use this, but there might be certain scenarios where you would have to use AND explicitly if you're using it in combination with like a NOT or a OR condition. So that's why I just also spoke about how to use AND explicitly, and we also learned how to convert your basic rule and how to define it with an explicit AND, right? So that was about AND. Let us now go to the NOT condition. All right, so up until now we have seen rules in more of a positive condition, right? Like with positive conditions. So for example, over here we have current age equal to true. So this is still a positive condition. If we can train a villager, if the civilian population is less than max villager count, all these are positive conditions. But in certain scenarios, you want to use negative scenarios or conditions, right? For example, let's say if you want to attack, but you don't want to attack if your enemy is in town. So in that case, you will use something like if town not under attack, then attack now. Or there could be another scenario where if skirmishers not found, then train archers, or if halbs are not found, then train cavalry, right? So the NOT operator is a very versatile operator. There are lots and lots of use cases. It can be used independently, as well as it can be combined with other operators like and or, etc., right? So now let's see how to actually implement the NOT operator. We'll actually take this simpler example where we take this rule and convert it into a NOT rule, right? As I said earlier, most of the rules or conditions can be written in different ways. So instead of true, we will now say if not false, which is equivalent to saying if true. So we will use the not operator, something like this, right? So if not false, and we will close this entire thing in a bracket. So now if we start the game or restart the game, we should still see this message, because not false will always be true, right? So this condition will be met and this command will be executed. So let's put this to test. Let's head back to our game. All right. So since our condition is not false, we should expect the message, "Hi, welcome to Blitzkrieg." Yeah, so as you can see over here, you did see the message, "Hi, welcome to Blitzkrieg." All right, so that not operator worked out. Heading back to the code, we will now see how to use the not operator with this AND condition. It should follow a very similar approach. So what we will do is, instead of saying civilian population less than max villager count, we will say not, and instead of less than, we'll have to reverse the condition. So not greater than equal to max villager count, and then we close that in parentheses. So what this means is, if the civilian population is not greater than equal to max villager count, our max villager count for mostly all civilizations in the as defined in the constants is 4. So what this means is, if the civilian population is not greater than equal to 4, only then train a villager. So in this scenario, if we again go back to our game and put this to test, we will expect that villager training to stop after 4 villagers. Let's see if that actually happens. Right, so the game has started and it is training a villager. At this point, we have 3 villagers. So the condition is not greater than equal to 4. 3 is not greater than equal to 4. So it trained a villager, but as soon as the 4th villager came in, not greater than equal to 4 became false and it stopped training a villager. Right? So that was around the not operator. We'll head back to the code and now talk about the OR operator. So the OR operator is another popular operator that can help you in defining your conditions as part of the different rules, right? So up until now, we have mainly seen the AND operator as part of the conditions. So the way to read this rule is current age equal to dark age, and I can train a villager, and the civilian population is not greater than equal to 4, right? So all these have been AND conditions up until now. Now let's talk about scenarios where an OR operator might be useful, right? So let's say you want to, based on your civilization selected, you want to set your strategy. So let's say we have a rule saying that if your civilization selected is either Berbers or it is Franks, in that scenario we want to set up the strategy to scout rush, right? So it's just an example of an OR condition. Likewise, you can have many more other permutations and combinations of different conditions having OR and not, right? So that's more around the OR condition. Now let's try to understand how can we implement the OR condition, right? So for that, we will be writing a new rule saying that if civ selected is Franks or Berbers, send chat setting strat to scout rush. Okay, so let's see how to actually define this rule. So we start off with our construct of a rule. Okay, now for this, the conditions, we will have to learn a new command. So for that, let's head back to our scripting guide. All right, so we are in our scripting guide. Over here, we are searching for a command called as sieve selected, right? So if you see the sieve selected command, uh, what it does is it's kind of a fact. It's a fact actually, and if you give the civilization name, it will check if your sieve selected is equal to the civilization name that you have given. So for example, over here, sieve selected Frankish. So these commands will only be activated if your sieve selected is Franks, right? Since the scenario that we want is if the civilization selected is Franks or it is Berbers, which is your 27, or Frankish. In that scenario, we want to send a chat message that's setting up the strategy to a scout rush, right? So let's head back to our code and put this into action, right? So we want to define an OR condition. So the syntax is very similar to an AND condition. So the way you would do it is within parentheses, you would have one condition with OR and the second condition without OR. So in this, we will add our first condition, and which is sieve selected Frankish, right? And over here, we will select our second condition, sieve selected is Berbers, right? In this scenario, we will send a chat message. So chat to all, setting the strat to fast, so to scout rush based on OR condition. Okay, and we will close this off with a disable self to avoid the spam. So the way to read this is, if your civilization selected is Franks, or if it is Berbers, in that case we will set the strategy to a scout rush based on the OR condition. Let's go back to the game and put this to test. So in this scenario, the civilization that we have selected is already Franks. So when the game starts, we should be seeing that message that we just wrote. So the civilization is Franks, and okay, there is some error. So let's head back to the code. It's on line 24. Okay, so let's head back to the code and see on line 24 what is the error. Okay, I missed an R over here. It's actually def rule. Okay, going back to the game and we restart. A lot of time these typos happen, so bear with me on that. Now as the game started, you can see that this message came up, setting the strat to scout rush based on the OR condition. And why did this happen? Because the sieve selected is Franks over here. Now let's test this out with Berbers, right? So we set up this and we select Berbers over here and we start the game. In this scenario, we should be expecting the similar message because we set up we selected Berbers and this is an OR condition. So if it is either Franks or Berbers, then this message will show up. Now let's test with some other random civilization which is neither Franks nor Berbers and see what happens. Let's simply select Aztecs and we start the game. Over here, if you see this, that message did not show up. And why? Because the sieve selected is neither Franks nor Berbers, right? So using this, we can looking at this, we can say that our OR condition actually worked out, right? So that was a quick summary on how can you use the OR operator. Now we will be talking through the other four operators, which is NOR, NAND, XOR and XNOR. All right, so let's head back to our coding screen. Okay, so we saw this example of OR, right? We have up until now we have covered and, not, and OR operators. Now we'll talk about the NOR operator, right? So first things first, a NOR operator is not like very mandatory to know, because it is more of a permutation and combination of your uh, three main operators, which is AND, OR, and NOT. A NOR operator is simply a NOT operator operated on top of your OR operator, right? So let us quickly check this out. The syntax will be very similar to OR. So let's say we just change this to NOR, right? So the meaning of this now becomes, if the civilization selected is neither Franks nor is it Berbers, in that case we will set this condition. All right. So let's say in this case we want to send out a message to echo boom, right, based on the NOR condition. All right, so let's test this back into our game. Let's head back to the game. So the civilization selected currently is, I think, Aztecs. We'll check that in a moment. Right, so civilization is Aztecs, and all right, I made that same mistake again. I've not selected the bot. Okay, and we'll go with Aztecs. And if you see, we see this message setting the strat to echo boom based on the NOR condition. Let's take a moment to understand why this happened, right? We selected Aztecs, and our condition was, if your civilization selected is neither Franks nor Berbers, right? Now, since we selected Aztecs, that condition becomes true because you have neither selected Franks nor have you selected Berbers. So in that case, that message got triggered, right? So that's pretty much about the NOR operator. Let's head back to our code to understand about the NAND operator, right? So a NOR operator was mainly a NOT operator on top of your OR operator. A NAND operator similarly is a NOT operator applied on top of your AND operator, right? So of course over here we cannot have this will kind of never be true, because you cannot have two civilizations selected in one game. So we will change this condition to map type, and let's say Arabia. Okay, what this means is, if your civilization selected is Franks and if your map type is Arabia, if both of these conditions are not met, in that scenario we will be setting this message or triggering this message. Okay, so over here we'll simply just say to random strat. Okay, just for the sake of this example, and we are going to test this out. Okay, so heading back to the game, we simply restart the game. Our map, I think, is Arabia, and our civilization selected is Aztecs, right? So in this scenario you can see that how does the NAND condition work, right? If so, that will be triggered only if, actually that will not be triggered only if your civilization is Franks and Arabia and your map type is Arabia. In all other scenarios it will be triggered. So in this case, even if our map was Arabia, since the civilization is Aztecs, that message got triggered. Let's try to see in which scenario will that message not be triggered. Let's reset up the game with those conditions. and we will select France. Map is Arabia. In this case, we expect that message to not be triggered, right? And that's exactly what happened. Why? Because our civilization selected is France and the map is Arabia, so that NAND condition became false and the message was not triggered, right? So that was around the NAND condition. Really, just a very quick recap on NOR and NAND, or quick note on NOR and NAND. Essentially, they are just derivatives of your three mandatory or most important operators, which is AND, NOT, and OR, right? So don't worry too much about NOR and NAND as well. Try to understand your main operators AND, OR, and NOT in very much detail, and you should be good throughout your journey. We'll quickly also discuss the other two operators, which is your XOR and XNOR. XOR and XNOR are very special operators. XOR actually means exclusive OR. So uh, what it means is that, let's say if you have two conditions, right? One and only one condition from both the conditions should be met. Only then will the value be true. So in the previous OR examples, let's get back to our code base and try to understand this, right? So we had said that we had set up a OR condition. If selected is France, or if selected is let's say Berbers, right? Berbers. Okay, and we say XOR over here. What does this mean? If both these conditions, in case of OR, actually, if both the conditions are met, then this will be true, right? Even if one of the conditions is met, it will be true. If both the conditions are met, then also this will be true. But the way XOR works is, if one of the conditions is true, then the overall condition will be true. But if both the conditions are true, in that case XOR will give me false. So it's an exclusive OR operator, which means that it will be true only and only if one and only one condition of the two conditions are met. And similarly, XNOR is simply the negative of that. Again, as I said earlier, we need not worry a lot about all these XOR and XNOR conditions. And again, a note on your NOR and NAND conditions, they are nice to have. They can simplify your code, so do try to understand that. But your three main operators, which is AND, OR, and NOT, are the most important for you to understand. And again, don't worry about the syntax. I will be posting all these syntaxes in the description below, so that you can copy paste that into your code, or refer to it as your guide, right? So this brings us to the end of today's video. Alright, so in today's video, we learned all about the different operators that you can use in your AI scripting. We spoke about AND, OR, NOT, NOR, NAND, XOR, XNOR, and all about it. We also spoke about some practical scenarios around how you can use these operators, and use different permutations and combinations of these different operators, right? So that was it about today's video. In the upcoming video, there is some good news. We are actually going to start building our bot, and in the next video, immediate next video, I will be talking about strategic numbers. It's another very important concept in your AI scripting. So we'll talk all about strategic numbers, and we'll learn how to set up scouting using strategic numbers, right? So exciting times ahead. If you like our today's video, please feel free to give us a shout out in the comments, or leave suggestions in the comment box if you have any suggestions around how we can improve these videos. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel to get notifications of our future videos. Thanks again for watching today's video, and see you in the next one.